Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I am joined by a gentleman who doesn't need any introduction on many channels, especially on mine. Mr. Larry Johnson is back. Back, Larry.
Hi there. Glad to be with you as
I want
always, Ania.
Thank you so much. I want to ask all of you guys to make sure before you leave this live stream to hit this like, because it really helps with YouTube recommending this content to other people around the world. Since we know what mainstream media is reporting mainly, and I would like to address several important topics today. Before we do this, also to those of you who want to support my work, please make sure to order my book that I collaborated on with Scott Ritter, covering Ukraine, the Scott Ritter interviews through the eyes of Anya Kay, and Larry was actually giving us the afterword, which is absolute honor. So you can read few words from Larry at the end of the book. Other links to me down below as well. Mr. Larry Johnson you can find on Sonar 21. Everything is there, the blogs, YouTube channel, all his work, and to contact Larry as well. So Larry, I had my questions ready, and then I came back, I turned on the computer, and what do I see? Let me start with this. The United States Army is transferring tanks and other combat vehicles from Germany to a NATO base in Podwicz in Poland. As part of an ongoing effort aimed at supplementing the Defense Alliance presence on its eastern border. Polish news outlet Radio Z published an image of a convoy of United States combat vehicles making its way from a military base in Germany to this warehouse in Podwicz and reported that the transfer of vehicles will continue through the September of 2024. Few more things here I want to say. The US, one second, right here. The NATO-founded storage facility will eventually host 87 tanks, as well as over 100 infantry fighting vehicles and 18 self-propelled howitzers, according to Newsweek, which reported that 14 M1 Abrams tanks were transferred to the site in June. So, Larry, I just came across this news. Let me ask you here, what the heck? What do you think? What's going on with this?
Here, I'm looking something up. Let's see. In fact, I heard from a buddy of mine, it was a week ago, and his grandson is being deployed to Poland with the 1st Armored Division from Fort Bliss. So why is the 1st Armored Division of Fort Bliss going to Poland? Some could argue it's there to shore up Poland, to make Poland feel more comfortable with the United States. If I'm Russia, I'm looking at it as a potential for the United States prepping to invade Russia. So, the United States is playing a very dangerous game here. And it's, put these American kids in harm's way. I think it creates a real possible target that Russia could hit in the event that the United States weapons are used further inside Russia to hit sensitive Russian targets.
So, Larry, from this article, I literally just scrolled through this. I didn't even have much time to research more. I will do it later on. So today in my videos, I will be talking about it. But I want to ask you, if they mention this as far as September, it will go throughout. So we have August and we have September. What do you think is their plan? What do you think they are trying to create with this movement?
Well, I think one is trying to show the Polish government, hey, we're with you 100%. We're sending our troops. We're sending our tanks. Look, tanks are not a defensive weapon. Tanks are an offensive weapon. So to deploy them to Poland means you're potentially ready to put them into Ukraine. This is it's a form of saber rattling. The United States may not actually be serious about trying to push those tanks into Ukraine and to fight the Russians. But again, Russia gets a say in this as well, and the Russians get to look at this. If I'm on the Russian general staff, I've got to assume the worst. I've got to assume that those U.S. tanks are being pre-positioned there in order to invade my country and to attack my forces. So therefore, got to drop that. This is like pouring gasoline on some logs and then saying, "Hey, hand me a match. I want to light a cigarette." It creates a very explosive situation.
So let's say they move those tanks all the way to the border. They get closer to border with Russia. I don't have a question. This is just literally my way of thinking now.
Yeah.
And then something happens, some form of explosion, some form of reaction.
Well, no, I mean, it would depend if there would be if these vehicles where the specific base that you mentioned, was it Puts?
I have to double check. From where I was looking on the map, this is not close to the border with Russia yet.
Okay.
This is near
You mean
Poznan, but I might be.
The border
it's
with
not
Ukraine.
Poznan. Yeah, but I have to double check because sometimes you have the names of the villages or towns that they can be similar. So I have to double check. That's why I don't want to give the exact location now, because it might be more in the center of Poland and might be closer to the eastern border. But nevertheless, the plan is to go closer to Russia, to border with Russia, Larry, right?
That's what I'm trying to specify. Can you give me the name of the town again? You mentioned it at the outset, the start of that article.
1 sec. I have to look for it again. 1 second. One moment. I lost the article now from all this news. I will actually report on this tomorrow. So before I find it, it's said Podvuch, which is close to Poznan. Poznan is, let's say, closer to the west side of Poland.
Okay, so as long as the tanks stay there, then you can argue it's for military exercise. It's just a show of support for Poland. If they move from there towards the Ukrainian border and are located adjacent to the Ukrainian border, then that would be an alarming indicator of a possible offensive operation in Ukraine. And then it would make the United States a legitimate target of the Russians. So that's what people need to watch out for is that the tanks going to stay over there by Poznan, or are they going to move east?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's called Podvuch, but I will be following this, and then I will actually email you later on the name of the city, so you will know as well. Well, what can I say? Larry, yesterday I recorded a video in which I have mentioned an article from TASS. In this article, there was a report. Was reported that Ukraine has lost 60,000 troops in July alone. And I made a mistake. I said lost, which I already assumed all of those people are dead, which in a way, when you look at it, it might be missing in action, wounded. A lot of those wounded might not make it. I want to ask you, there were some comments under my videos. Do you believe that this is the realistic number, that there is so many people that Ukraine is losing monthly on this scale?
Yes.
60,000 troops.
Yeah, no, I think it's easy. Russia's been reporting on average 2,000 casualties inflicted on Ukraine each day, and it probably goes back over the last 3 months. So you're talking, I think and Andrei Martyanov and I were talking about this the other day. I think you're looking at potentially 1 million dead Ukrainians, and then another 1 million to 2 million wounded, which means they're no longer capable of fighting. Probably. Yeah, no, it's a horrific human price, human toll that's being exacted on Ukraine. But what do you expect when Russia can fire 8 to 10 times the artillery rounds? Well, just put a group of people on one side, each with a gun, and so on one side you got 100 people. Let's say 20 of them have a gun with one bullet. On the other side, you have a group with 200 people, and 50 of them have guns, but they've got 6 bullets per gun, and they're going to fire at each other. Which side's going to suffer more dead and wounded? The side with the fewest bullets. So, the fewest rounds of ammunition to fire. That's what's going on. It's, this is, people try to make this overly complicated. It's not overly complicated. Real simple.
This is really, really absolutely crazy number when you think about it. Someone left the comment, Larry, down below my video yesterday. If I remember correctly, someone said that United States during the war with Vietnam, they lost 20,000 soldiers throughout the entire conflict. Is it true?
No. They lost 58,000. So the total number of dead in Vietnam is 58,000. Let's look at the losses, total killed in action by the United States in the war in Iraq from 2003 through 2018. In the war in Afghanistan, 7,300. So essentially, in those two wars, over the course of about 20 years, the United States had lost the same number of troops in 20 years that Ukraine is losing in 3 days or 4 days. I mean, it's just, it's off the charts.
It's off the charts. It's off the charts. Like, they were breaking down actually from the time frames that report from Russia. This week, that week, and we are becoming numb to it.
Yeah.
Like we are looking at the numbers, not at the human being who has family, children, relatives, friends.
Yeah.
Future of them.
Yeah. No, it's the Ukrainians are paying a horrific price for agreeing to be the proxy of the West. And at some point they got to wake up and recognize the West doesn't give a damn about them. Doesn't care about them. Could care less if they die or not.
Larry, now we're gonna move to Israel. First, Israel and Iran, and actually Turkey as well. But this is recent. Iran vows revenge against Israel. I would really appreciate if you can educate my audience, that part of the audience that doesn't know, because my audience is much more politically savvy than I am, to be honest. Can you please explain to us why Iran wants to have a revenge? And if there will be a revenge against Israel, what, in your opinion, it will look like?
Iran has been, let's call it, the punching bag of Israel for several years. The Israelis, I give Mossad, the Israeli intelligence service, high praise. They're very good at being able to recruit and penetrate agents to act for them in Iran. They've carried out multiple assassinations of nuclear scientists, assassinations of generals, key military officers, political figures, and even in this case, got somebody to plant a bomb in a residence where Ismail Haniyeh, the head of Hamas Politburo, was staying. People forget, and people your age and younger don't recall that in 1981, the Israelis came to then President Ronald Reagan seeking permission to sell weapons to the Ayatollah Khomeini in Iran because they saw that they were more fearful of Iraq and its what they believed was Iraq's pursuit of nuclear weapons. So Israel got in the business of arming the Iranians, and the United States went along with it. Well, in the course of that, naturally, Mossad agents are dealing with members of the Iranian Revolutionary General Command, IRGC, and others in Iran. So they established ties. They also then later, that relationship was ruptured in 1987, 88. And then Israel became, declares all this hostility towards Iran, except, again, Israel blames Iran for sponsoring Hamas. And yet so was Israel. Israel's sending money to Hamas. Israel was funding Hamas. I mean, really, Israel's like a cancer on the Middle East, the Zionists. They're self-destructive. And but Israel's got it in its mind that it must destroy Iran at all costs. And up to this point, Iran's been they've been very patient. They've withheld retaliation. The last retaliation we saw was in April, following the bombing of the Iranian diplomatic facility in Beirut. At that time, they did a show they launched a combination of drones, cruise missiles, and ballistic missiles. Each of those, cruise missiles travel the slowest, ballistic missiles travel the fastest. So you time out how long is it going to take a drone to go from point A to point B, and then you can figure out when you need to launch cruise missiles so that they arrive just about the same time, and then you've timed the arrival of your ballistic missiles just a minute or two after that. So the notion is you try to overwhelm Israeli and allied air defense systems. Well, Iran demonstrated that as the concept in April. They didn't really try to destroy Israel and cause significant damage. Countries like the United States, China, Russia intervened behind the scenes to get Iran to, make a demonstration, but don't kill anybody. This time they're going to kill people. And I expect that we could see something very much like we saw in April, except this time it's going to include missiles and rockets fired by Hezbollah. It's going to include missiles and rockets fired by the Houthis. So Israel's air defense system could find itself very much overwhelmed. And no matter what the United States and the Brits do to try to help, it will not be enough. And I think you're going to see some significant damage done on both military facilities and civilian infrastructure in places like Tel Aviv and Haifa. I think that could come as soon as this weekend.
Larry, so let me ask you here. If or when this happens, what countries will get engaged from the Iran side to support Iran? And what countries will get engaged, pull into this from the Israeli side?
Well, it looks like the Saudis are going to support Israel. Jordan looks like it'll try to support Israel, but the people in the street have a say. Remains to be seen what Egypt will do. Clearly the Turks, Erdogan talks a good game. We'll see now if he'll up it and follow it up with action. Countries as far away as Pakistan, Kuwait has announced it's sitting on the sidelines. Qatar, I think Qatar may back the Palestinians and Iran at this point. So, and let's not forget Russia and China. They will have Iran's back. And that's one thing the United States, if the United States dares to try to launch an attack on Iran, that'll be sheer madness. But you can't rule it out. This crew around Biden they're crazy. And they exaggerate. I don't think they fully understand the limitations of American military power.
So this will be global, Larry.
This will be what?
This will be global conflict.
Yeah.
Once it starts.
It really has a chance to grow into that very quickly. Yes.
So on this note, I will go back to Israel and atrocities there in Gaza. Well, actually in Israel with Palestinian people, but I want to go for a moment here to President Putin, who repeats his warnings 10 minutes away. And we all know what is this. This is the flight time of missiles to reach targets on Russian territory, and it will be around 10 minutes.
Right.
Since they are thinking to place those missiles, right, in Germany. Right. And here is the catch, Larry. I don't believe this BS, excuse me, that this will be 2026, because we are looking at this as if it's almost happening any day soon, the reaction to it.
Yeah, well, this has been developing for a while. It started in 2019 when Donald Trump and the United States withdrew from the INF Treaty. Russia, up to this point, has been exercising some patience, but they've announced no more patience. So they're going to they would look to place their missiles in places like Cuba and offshore and near U.S. bases, just so the United States will face the same 10-minute decision making. And the difference is the Russians, I think, are much better prepared to act on that threat and to defend against that threat than the United States.
So I want to ask you about this. The article came out, let me see here, from the Times of Israel from July 31st. I'm sure you heard about it. UN report says Palestinian detainees in Israel were subjected to torture and mistreatment. And I want to read you guys some of those facts here because they are pretty horrific. And we have to talk about it because many people don't want to talk about it, but we have to talk about it, even though there is an article and I don't think it has enough coverage. I'm not going to read you the whole thing. This is from the report issued on last Wednesday, July 31st, by the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, that alleged that 53 Palestinian detainees have died in Israeli custody. And they mention, one second, I lost the page. This is me running today here. 1 second. Detainees said they were held in cage-like facilities, stripped naked for prolonged periods, wearing only diapers. Their testimonies told of prolonged blindfolding, deprivation of food, sleep, and water, and being subjected to electric shocks and being burned with cigarettes. Some detainees said they were released on them, dogs were released on them, and others said they were subjected to waterboarding or that their hands were tied and they were suspended from the ceiling. Some women and men also spoke of sexual and gender-based violence. Read it, rape. I was thinking what question to ask from this, Larry. I will say this because, of course, Israel denied, right? Like this is not true, and
well, actually, they haven't denied it. I mean, this was interesting. So the Ministry of Defense sent military police to the prison where some of these abuses are alleged to have taken place, to arrest or detain 9 of the guards. 9 of the Zionist guards who were accused of committing these atrocities. That then provoked a major backlash by a lot of the settlers who encouraged this. And people under Ben-Gvir and Smotrich, were fighting back against Israeli military police. So there's a real division in Israel. In fact, there was a heated exchange at one of the government meetings the other day between 2 members of Bibi's. I don't know if they were cabinet members, but they were clearly, part of the government. And the one, let's call it the good Jew, the good Israeli, was saying this was an outrage that these allegations appeared to be true. And this other, I could only call him a Zionist pig, was screaming that, no, we can rape him, we can do whatever we want to him. That's what he said. rape them, kill them, torture them. Who cares? It is just, it's a nightmare what's going on, and so it underscores there is a division within Israel on at least some of these issues, and Israel is not a strong, united front. So, so these charges, they'll feed into the International Court of Justice as well. But just the fact that at least one Israeli entity is trying to investigate it, because they recognize it so damages Israel's credibility in the world. Israel already has no credibility, frankly.
Larry, I would like to ask you this. Who gives the order or permission to go that far to those soldiers who are in those facilities, to those Israeli soldiers? Who gives the order? Where is a limit?
Well, it's not so much who's someone giving an order to it, is that there's nobody in command that's stopping it. Those in charge, so ultimately the responsibility rests with Netanyahu and Gallant on down. Because if you're a leader and you make it very clear, I'm not going to tolerate this. This is how we're going to conduct ourselves with prisoners. This is the standard of treatment. This is how you will behave. The fact that these kinds of actions are being taken is just a reflection that the soldiers are carrying out the wishes of their commanders. So it goes all the way up to Netanyahu and Gallant.
But will there ever be any justice for those people?
Maybe not. Just like, look at the ones who were tortured at Abu Ghraib by U.S. soldiers and CIA personnel. They haven't been compensated financially, or they haven't seen the people that tortured and brought to Iraq to stand trial and be punished. So it's very likely that this will be left up to God to punish.
Well, and that is the ultimate punishment, in my opinion.
Yeah, right.
Larry, I want to ask you about Netanyahu's visit to the United States. What do you think he has accomplished with that visit?
He got permission and support for this upcoming offensive. Again, we're going to the coordinated assassinations last weekend were not just serendipity, spur of the moment. Those were planned, and they were planned and executed in the same time frame. And you could clearly tell the United States had foreknowledge of this, as did the Brits, because both were sending ships towards the Mediterranean even before those attacks had taken place. And these were not routine deployments. So they knew something was up. It was, that was the primary thing to talk about Iran's plan, or Israel's plan, to take on Iran and to make sure that he'd have backing of the United States. They've bought into the notion that Iran's going to get a nuclear bomb, and they've got to stop Iran now. And Israel may even use a tactical nuke. So, I mean, we're really into dangerous territory. It's heating up, and you could see, right now, it's it's 8:30 at night in the Middle East. So same hour as it's 8:30 at night at your time, correct?
7:32.
7:30. So okay, so there's 6 hours. They're going. I think we're going to see things heat up within the next 5 or 6 hours. We'll find out.
Russia has exchanged 26 prisoners at Ankara airport in Turkey. It was a prisoner swap. What do you think is the strategy behind this? Behind swapping those prisoners now, at this moment?
Yeah, see, so the United States got all of its heroes, all of its heroic people who'd been unfairly punished, and the Russians just got a bunch of criminals and murderers. So that's how it's being reported in the West. There's no nuance. So take this, Marine guy named Whalen, who was released, portrayed as here's just some dumb Marine who was attending a wedding, and my God, they just picked up for no good reason. Then you go back and look at his history. And on the one hand, you have U.S. I will call them former colleagues out claiming, the United States would never recruit this guy as an intelligence asset because he got kicked out of the Marine Corps with a dishonorable discharge because he was a thief and a fraudster. Okay? But thief and fraudster, dishonorable discharge, is the head of security for an American auto parts company, Borg Warner, which is doing business in Russia. Really? You're going to put in charge of your security operations, which also oversees internal theft and such, a guy who's a convicted thief who's been kicked out of the military for fraudulent activities. I don't think there's any possibility that the guy was a non-official cover officer working for the CIA, that they would have recruited him to use him, and that he was engaged with espionage activities, as is alleged by Russia. See, the way America is presented, like this is guy, just poor innocent guy minding his own business. Meanwhile, they're all up and got their panties all in a knot over, the Germans released a murderer, Putin's assassin. This guy named Vadim. Well, you look into it and say, God, what did he do? He killed a Chechen terrorist who had committed war crimes against Russian soldiers, including driving a car over the heads of 9 people and crushing their heads. Russians made a vow. We'll hunt you down. You do this to our people, we'll hunt you down and bring you to justice. This guy hunted him down in Germany and killed him. Now, if the roles were reversed, if this had been someone associated with the CIA who had hunted down one of the killers of the people that carried out 9/11 and shot and killed them and then was put in prison, we'd be celebrating that person as a hero. So it's just, there's so much bullshit, and I'll use that term, being, tossed around, that, this is an old-fashioned spy swap. It's gone on for years. They did it with Victor Boot a few years back. They did it in the 1960s. They did it in the 1970s. The difference this time is it was probably facilitated in large measure because the current head of the CIA, Bill Burns, was the ambassador in Moscow, does have Russian contacts, and they allowed Turkey to mediate, to become sort of a intermediary to get everybody together. The real danger for me is you still don't have high-level contacts between Washington and Moscow.
Exactly. And they talk about it recently a lot. If you noticed, right? Maria Zakharova, Sergei Lavrov, they talk about it a lot recently. Yeah. There is no communication at all.
Right. And they're not just saying that. I heard the deputy foreign minister say the same thing in a private setting. I mean, he wasn't trying to spread misinformation. He was just commenting matter-of-factly, just like he'd say, hey, it's raining outside, or the sun's out. It was just, hey, this is what's not going on.
I saw yesterday this video when President Putin was greeting some of those prisoners coming back with flowers.
Mm-hmm.
And you're thinking, because it's easy. Oh, it's just Putin with flowers greeting those prisoners. No, it's president. It's president of the country.
Well, right. And again, the people coming back were intelligence operatives for the most part. But that's what, you're going to go ask someone to do intelligence activities overseas and they get caught. You as a country have your service will look to you and say, are you going to leave us hung out to dry? You're going to come get us. And Putin and the Russians said, hey, we're going to come get you. We're not going to forget you.
Larry, while you drink your water, because some viewers are concerned, they were saying, Larry, please drink some water.
Yeah, a little dehydrated.
Yes, I want to ask you last question today. Unless someone has, you can put in the super chat. Do you think there can be United States without CIA at all? Like, what is the purpose of CIA anymore? I mean, can we just be done with this project ever completely or no?
Well, we got to figure out when we say with the CIA, what do we mean? So what Harry Truman envisioned was an organization that would have people that would go overseas and try to recruit foreigners who would give us secrets, who would give us information, who would tell us what was going on in their country so that we would know if somebody out there was planning to do bad things to the United States. And that those people then would write up reports about what their sources were telling them. And that then the analysts back in Washington would take that information and combine it with other information so the president would get as accurate a picture as possible of what was going on in the world. That's what it was supposed to be. What happened, though, is pretty quickly after formation, and in part because of influence of Germans, the German chief of intelligence, a guy named Reinhard Gehlen, that was taken over by CIA. The CIA got involved with covert action, where that instead of being passive and trying to get information and find out what's going on, we decided to get in the business of carrying out action, recruiting people in other countries, like in Ukraine, training them, arming them, equipping them with technology and as well as tradecraft to conduct espionage, and to have them interfere in the political affairs of foreign countries. It's what we did in Iran, what led to the overthrow of an elected president. So we did in Guatemala, same to its elected leader, Arbenz. In fact, we did it to hundreds of countries. Did it in Vietnam multiple times. That's what needs to be destroyed. That part of the CIA needs to be removed. I believe firmly that we should have an intelligence service, that does recruit people to spy. In the ideal world, what would happen is China, Russia, the United States would all get together and say, okay, we're going to agree that we're going to be transparent to one another, just so we'll know that each other's not preparing to attack the other. So we're going to agree that each country can send a personal representative that'll work in, like, say, the Oval Office with the president, to be there so they can watch what's going on and report back. Yeah, the Americans aren't getting ready to do anything crazy. Now, that's naive. That'd never happen. But the CIA needs to be broken apart and started over, in my view. It's become really, I've heard, cannot independently verify this, but from an officer that I have a lot of confidence in, that it's really been it's taken over by sort of a homosexual culture. It used to be the CIA eschewed homosexuality and saw it as a potential for blackmail. Now you've got openly recruiting homosexuals, transgender, with no regards for what that could mean as a potential blackmail situation. But it needs to be broken apart, started over, smaller groups, smaller bureaucracy. Same for the FBI. But will that happen? Not likely. But we can dream.
Was my next question, but I see there are two questions, Larry, from the viewers. If Iran has a good air defense, how come a person could be killed by in Tehran?
Well, because it wasn't a missile. It was a bomb that was smuggled into the residence and remotely detonated. There are Israel has pretty good reach inside Iran, has had for a while. It has contacts through the Mujahideen al-Khalq, the MEK. It has contacts with the Baluchis population, which is in southeast Iran, but they've got rug. A lot of them are rug merchants, literally, that operate up in Tehran and other cities. And very well, how could someone get access to that apartment? Hey, do they buy rugs? Do they have a new rug installed? That's one way. So, however, Israel did it, they had penetration, and this wasn't a matter of a failure of air defense. This was a matter of a failure of internal defense.
Thank you, Larry. And one more question from the viewer. Why would, I believe, Russia, right, trade 16 foreigners for 8 Russians?
Because the 8 Russians were intelligence officers that Russia wanted back. Part of to keep morale up in your intelligence service is to show that if you are going to take high risk activities overseas and put yourself in a position where you could be arrested and possibly executed, will your government back you up or not? Putin showed, hey, we will go out for our own people and we'll trade. And I think the trade was very much in Russia's favor. At least they got bona fide intelligence officers. It's not clear, it's not clear to me. I don't think Evan Gershkovich was a high level CIA operative by any stretch. But I think he was skating on the edge with his reporting and collecting certain material, and created a target that the Russians could take advantage of in order to create leverage to get back these other officers. I'd like to go match up the timelines of when each of the people who were arrested or detained in the West, when they were detained, and then when the ones that Russia holds were detained. Just be interested to see if it was a tit for tat or not. You remember this was in the first Victor Bout. There was a trade that got Victor Bout out, and Marina Butina. They got her out. So this has gone on for ages. Just gives the news media something to talk about in a otherwise slow news day.
And I actually have one more question. I always say I don't have any more, but I think I can ask. I can ask you this because through many conversations that we had together, Larry, I got a sense that you are, if I may say, you are a man of God. You believe,
yes.
You believe in that we are in a fight which is between good and evil.
Right.
So I will ask you this question now. Opening of the Olympics that I haven't watched fully, I only watched some parts of it because, I had to see what shit show they put together to present to the world. I want to know, in your opinion, do you think that, as I believe, light, God, always wins, no matter what, always wins. But do you believe we will see this victory in our lifetime?
Yes, I do. If nothing else, Russia stands as a living example of that victory. When the Soviet Union collapsed, the Soviets were. It was not a country that embraced. The Soviet ideology didn't embrace Christianity. It glorified communism. It glorified the party. It glorified this institutional corruption that really was for, the small, the favored. It wasn't necessarily based on merit. It was based upon who you knew and, who was considered a party loyalist. And so it created a mentality not of excellence, but of subservience. And, things like Chernobyl happened in part because people were more interested in being loyal to the party as opposed to upholding certain standards. With the collapse of the Soviet Union and the breakup and the infliction of so much harm and suffering on the people, in the mid to late 1990s, Moscow was described to me by a friend who moved there in '99. He called it a shithole, like a putrid outdoor latrine. But yet, look at what's happened over the last 25 years. Moscow has now become really a gleaming city, immaculate, beautiful. The people are well fed, well clothed. The industry is going on. It's a religious country. It's a country that rejects the LGBTQ transgender madness. It's normal. Russia's normal. So, yeah, that's what I say. Just if you look back and you were in the midst of the grip of the Soviet Union in 1975, you could have very well said, there's no way we're going to ever get out of this. We're trapped. That's why people like, Dmitry Simes at the time left and came to the United States. And it's why people like Andrei Martyanov left in 93. Because they felt there was no future there. But there certainly is a future, and to the point that Dmitry Simes Sr. and his son Dmitry Simes Jr. have gone back to Russia. Because in Russia, they find more freedom, more respect for the family values, traditional values, than they do in the United States. So, yeah, we're engaged with both the spiritual warfare, but it ultimately is, we see it every day. Light prevails over darkness. Once the light of the sun comes up, the darkness goes away.
Thank you, Larry. I believe in this too. And there were many prophecies, because that's another thing I'm interested in spiritual aspects of things. There were many prophecies that Russia will be this leading country that will save humanity. And when I look at this now, I believe in this wholeheartedly. I really do.
Now, you're saying that's in a prophecy?
Yeah, that was actually one of the very, very known American psychics, Edgar Casey. He was very known. I think he lived in 30s, I believe.
Yeah. I know who he is.
He prophesied. I will send you the prophecy that he had. He was going into the dream state, and he was receiving information about many very important things. And one of those, Putin was not even born in that time. He mentioned the leader, he described the leader, he described the country, and he said Russia will be a thorn. I forgot the word. Like in the West, Russia will trigger the West, but Russia will be like this leading torch, like a light that will be saving humanity. And
yeah, I believe that's where we're at right now, candidly. I agree with that.
Thank you, Larry. All right, everyone. So this is the live. Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining me today. Larry always has time. Can I just tell you guys, I'm so honored that I have such a wonderful guests like Mr. Larry Johnson and other great experts on my channel. Sometimes I have to pinch myself so my ego doesn't grow, too big. But thank you so much for joining me. To find Larry, you just go to Sonar21 and you can scroll down. The link is already down below this video. All the links to me you have down below as well. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your questions, for your support, and leave the comments down below. Always welcome, because I'm learning from your knowledge, guys, too, as you know. Thank you so much, and until next time. Bye, everyone.